What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to D-Dub. Today we're talking about GameStop and what I enjoy about it, what I know other people enjoy about it, what me and other people also don't enjoy about it, what we'd like to see happen to the retail store, this giant corporation that does all these different things, and just what they should do going forward, as well as with this news coming out of 150 to 180, almost 200 stores are going to be closing, which it might be more, it might be less by the fiscal year. Either way, this is like a transition period, which GameStop sorely needs. There's so many different stories and there's so many different cities of there being like 5 GameStops within a half-mile radius, and I'm sure plenty of those stores do well in your heavily populated areas. I'm sure plenty of those stores get a bunch of good sales, and then even around like Christmas time, especially like right about now, like September up until Christmas, right into the first few weeks of the new year after gift cards and all those types of extra money and leftovers going into the new year are being spent. I'm sure some of those stores do fine. I'm sure some of them do great, and I'm sure even some of the areas where there are 2 or 3 or some of them even up to 5, or even in like Philadelphia, there's like 8 GameStops that are within this like 2-mile radius. I'm sure some of those stores do fine, like I said, especially around the holidays, because some stores run out of things, some have more orders of stuff than others. So if you have that many stores in the local area, it would make sense that you could go to multiple just to see what they have. If one store is completely out of something, whether it's Pokemon cards, like the new set that's out, like t-shirts, or if it's the brand new game that came out, whether it's Switch, or maybe it's a physical edition of something like a Switch game that just kind of dropped under the radar, something where usually a GameStop will only buy like maybe a couple copies, and then if it sells well, they'll get more, but it might be a couple weeks after it comes out. You might go ask the person at the counter if they have it, and they might say, you know, we had a couple and they sold and we're not sure when we're getting more in. So that's just one aspect to GameStop, and that's basically just the premise of this video, is with these stores closing, just what is going to happen. So guys, if you like the video, make sure to hit the like button, share this video if you know anybody who's into GameStop, or if maybe they've got this information, or I guess misinformation, thinking that all of a sudden this giant chain of stores is just going to be kind of closing overnight, and that the whole thing might just be gone within, who knows, 6 months or a year. So you got a lot of these outlets, these gaming sites, gaming YouTube channels, and there's been plenty of videos months and months and months back, basically for the past couple of years, of GameStop needs to change. GameStop's going to be closing. And now with this new article, this new news that it's mosquitoes. And now with this new news saying that there's going to be up to 200 stores closing by the end of the fiscal year, which is in the next 4 months. And that's quite a few stores, and I'm sure some of these stores are underperforming. And that's kind of to be expected. So as a corporation, when profits are down, it just makes sense that they're going to go around, see what stores are underperforming, and probably close some of the ones that are in these heavily densely populated areas where there's another one just down the way. So if there's plenty of cities that just have even 2 or 3 GameStops that are right down the street from each other, some of them are across the street from each other, some of them, hell, they're even in the same mall, like right around and down the corner. So it makes sense to take some of those underperforming stores and just kind of get rid of them if you don't need them, put the stock into the one store, the one that gets the more traffic, and make sure that they have enough stock and enough things that they can sell to basically make up for that. It's pretty basic, and it just kind of makes sense. So hopefully that's what they're doing here. But 200 stores out of a total of 5,700, that's really not that bad. And they've gone through a couple new CEOs just in the past year. I think they've gone through 3. One of them quit unexpectedly. The other one, he couldn't handle it after a couple months, and now there's a newer one. So hopefully he's doing his job, and they're kind of going through the papers, going through the numbers, actually touring and like going to the stores and seeing what they can improve. Because as somebody who shops at GameStop, there's basically this celebration and this like mantra of like, GameStop, they're trash, hopefully they die off soon, they need to die, they should have died a long time ago, hopefully this is it for them and they can hurry up and close out by the time, say, the Nintendo Switch is done. That way I can go and get the blowout sale and basically buy, you know, 50 games for like $200. And while I can understand that, it's like, I'm not in that camp. I personally don't agree with that. GameStop needs to stick around. The problem with GameStop is, of course, the corporate heads, the people that run the show, the way that they have everything kind of stacked up, the way the whole engine runs, and the way that that trickles down to the people that run the store, the managers, the key holders, the assistant managers, all the different titles that they have, and the way that they sort of come across as sketchy, but it's based on this terrible business model that we all agree on it's not good. It's not even decent. I guess it really depends on the store. There are some stores with decent people working, and they might see you all the time, so they know not to push the pro card on you. They know you're already kind of a member or whatever. They know that you've told them already you take care of your games. They're not going to ask you if you want disc protection or cartridge protection on every single game that you try to buy from them, and that they just don't bother with you. Now, at my local GameStop, there's one or two people that are nice, and I'm pretty much a regular there, so they see me enough. They know. They don't ask all the different questions, but sometimes when there's a line and I'm standing in line, you hear the person or two in front of me, and it's like, oh, you're getting this game. Okay, it's a PS4 game. Oh, did you know Link's Awakening is coming out for the Nintendo Switch? Would you like to pre-order that? Huh? And they're like, no, I'm good. And they don't even say like, no, I don't have a Switch or whatever, because if you go, oh, that's the one for the Switch. Yeah, I don't have a Switch. They'll be like, oh, well, you know, hold on, let me see. And they'll purposely like walk away from the counter and take the extra time, and they'll go into the computer and let you know that this game and this one and this one and this one, you know, oh, do you have an Xbox One? And they really want to try to sell you at least a pre-order. They want to get you to pre-order something because it makes their numbers go up, and then they get treated better in the workplace. And that business model sucks because it's kind of coming down from the top to the next guy, to the next guy, to the next guy. And then there's this desperation that falls onto the customer, and it doesn't feel good being in that position where you're just trying to be upsold on something. Can I help you with a controller? You maybe need an SD card for your Nintendo Switch. Hey, we got these new Joy-Con. Oh, did you know that Dragon Quest XI S is coming out for the Switch? Okay, well, do you have like an Xbox One, or do you have a PS4? Actually, do you have kids? Are you interested in pre-ordering My Little Riding Pony stable? Oh, you're not? Oh, okay, well, let me think, like, what else? Do you have a computer? I mean, maybe you could buy, like, a mouse, or do you do, like, YouTube or anything? I mean, we do sell microphones. Oh, your shirt's nice, so you're kind of into, like, that anime stuff. Do you collect, like, figurines or anything like that? Like, do you maybe have a case? Because down at the way there, we have the Amiibos and, like, the Gokus and all the different like action figures and stuff like that. Oh, okay, so you are a pro member. Like, that's coming to an end soon. Do you want to pay now? Even though it's 6 months until that closes out, you could put the change on this and basically extend it. And okay, so your total is like $25.12. Are we gonna be rounding that up today? And would you like to donate that to the GameStop whatever charity? Sometimes it's a children's thing, or sometimes it's a veterans thing, and sometimes they kind of like take the liberty for you, like, oh, are we it's your total's $28.08. Are we rounding that $1.87 up to 30? Because, you know, that would be a good donation. We could just round it right up to 30. It's your choice, but you don't have to do it. So that's basically the whole gamut of the sell up onto the customer, and it's like, it sucks. No one wants to be treated like that. So hopefully if they can kind of get their head out of their ass and realize that you don't need to do that. Now, there was this new video of this new store that IGN basically said that it's a real store, and you can see that they've updated it, and it's got this like gray tile with like the gray walls, and it does have this like futuristic look. I'm not particularly fond of it, but it kind of looks nicer than it does now. And just based on that video, I think it looks pretty good, and I think that's one thing that they can do. But before they start going and spending all this money in the stores to kind of like change the way they look, you can only change so much about your appearance if the rest of the structure of it is terrible. It's not going to be good. If you have a bad foundation of a house, doesn't matter if you paint the house, if you do new drywall or anything like that. So hopefully GameStop can get their head out of their ass and just change the way that they treat the customers, the way that they change the pressure that they put on their employees to kind of push these things onto the customer, because it's not fair and it's not how a good business should run. And it's kind of unfortunate for them that they've both gained and lost because of this business model. Like at one time, it obviously was working in selling pro memberships and elite memberships and all the other stuff, all the other upselling. So at some point that worked and they were making a bunch of extra money and people were getting their bonuses and stuff. And now we're at a point where that's not working. Digital sales are kind of taking over and everybody's saying that. You can clearly see that they're just trying to get to the next generation, to when they can sell the next consoles, the next games, the next controllers, and point cards and stuff like that that'll go along side by side with the next PlayStation 5 and the next box from Microsoft. But going back to this mantra of like they're trash, they need to close, it shouldn't be celebrated. That shouldn't be a thing. I understand that. Sure, they need to close some stores. They kind of need to be put on their ass a little bit so that they can kind of see through the fog and reevaluate and kind of switch the way that they run things going forward, especially with digital taking over. We live in this era where now just from my controller and pulling my wallet out, being connected to the internet wirelessly, I can just go into the system and buy the newest game that'll come out at midnight, and you don't have to go to the store. I don't have to wake up in the morning, go out and get a game. And that's convenient for some people. A lot of people, younger kids, there are some, you go on YouTube, you see these younger kids and they're into collecting. They're into even like the NES or the Super NES or the GameCube. And there's still people out there that want the physical goods. They still want like amiibos and they still want the physical collection up on the shelf. And that's a good thing. But that seems to be a lower percent more than ever, now so more than ever than pretty much ever before. So digital is completely changing this entire landscape of gaming, and that's the part that kind of sucks. So everyone's saying that GameStop should basically just hurry up and die already. Everybody wants to kick them when they're down, which they're not even that down. I think they have probably a good 3-4 more years till basically the PS5 comes out, and after the hype of it, to see things start to slip. So hopefully, if they can, restructure well enough, they can get to that point and reevaluate some of the stores, maybe change the look of most of the stores, leave some of the ones alone. Like my local GameStop, they're number 1 in the country in terms of the trade-in games. Like the amount of trade-ins that they get on a daily basis is absolutely insane. So people are always trading in games, and those get shipped off to the warehouse and sold online and all that stuff. So I'm not worried about my local store closing anytime soon. It's a pretty small one, and probably about 7 years ago now, there were 2 GameStops. There was one that had been in the local mall for the longest time, and now that mall finally just closed its doors like a couple months ago. But at some point, they closed that GameStop after they had basically opened a new one down the way in this like shopping mall plaza. And that one's been there now it's probably been almost 10 years, I want to say. So it's been there for a bit, and it's not going to be closing anytime soon. But if it did close, I would be pretty upset, because aside from going to, I have a local Target, I have like 2 sort of local Walmarts. I don't have a Best Buy that's outside of an hour and 20-minute drive away. But when you go into those stores, you're only getting the big first-party releases, which once the systems come out and you've been following with those first-party releases, that's not very enticing anymore. You got what you got. You already have the games you want, and seeing the wall of first-party games isn't really that enticing. It still would be nice, like on Friday, if a GameStop wasn't out, that I could go buy the new Link's Awakening remaster and just go buy it off the shelf instead of having to buy it digitally. Like, that's still a valid point. So even if the GameStop locally around me was closed, there would still be that option. But aside from the first-party games, there's really just the major third-party titles that come out on all the systems that are kind of in the case, and it doesn't go too far outside of that. And now we're in this thing where a lot of these, basically the main first-party games and then these giant third-party games that Some are on like one or two platforms, but most of them are on all the platforms. And we're kind of coming to this point where digitally, those games are selling still phenomenally, whether it's physical or digital. And then it's the smaller games, the ones that are like indie games, or some of like just the not throwaway titles, but the lesser known ones, the cheaper ones. Some of them are like 30 or 40 bucks and they kind of don't really sell that well. Like those are the games, or like stuff like strictly limited or limited run games, like they're types of games. Those games, were it not for them, would never be sold physically. And sure, you can get them online, so even if a GameStop did close, you could still get it. But these kind of games aren't at your Walmart or at your Target or at your Best Buy, and that's a bit of a bummer. And so everybody's saying that GameStop just deserves to close, but it's like, why? I mean, the problem is that they went through and bought up all these other video game chains throughout the past 2 decades. There was at least a good 10 different ones, depending your area. I've heard of different names of stores that are essentially the same thing. They're just a different name. Either way, it's still sort of a corporation, whether it's EB, Electronic Boutique. We used to have one back in the day, and then it got bought out by GameStop. And then there's all these other names depending on whether you're from Canada or the South or on the West Coast, East Coast. There's different store names, so those are kind of like interchangeable. It doesn't really matter too much. But GameStop went through and bought them all out, and now 5,700 stores in, with currently about 200 closing, probably within the next 6 to 8 months. It might even be more than that. You know, it's just this issue where now if GameStop closes completely, we're going to have nothing. You're going to have Walmart and Target. And sure, you can just buy online, but there's something about still having a major video game outlet store that you can go to, where you don't have to hear about the stuff and go on Twitter and then basically just buy one for one. Like, there's an excitement about going into the store and thinking, I don't really want anything in particular today. Maybe you're just happen to be driving by and you decide to go in, and you never know what you'll find. Now, if they start bringing more retro games back, which I kind of think they will do, at least in some stores, maybe not everywhere, probably not in my local area, which, to be fair, they do sell some retro games for decent prices on the online store. But if they start bringing them into the store and you just decide to swing in one day, it's kind of like going to like a Goodwill store. Like, for some of these older games, whether it's like Wii or even Wii U or PS3, it's like you never know really what you're going to go in and find on the shelf. Somebody might have come in and traded a whole bunch of PS2 games, and those might be sitting on the wall for you to go through and kind of snag. And again, you could just go on eBay, but it's like some of these games, some of these things, some of these amiibos and stuff, you don't really think about buying them particularly until you go into the store. Then you start shopping with your eyes, you start seeing things, and you start picking things up, and next thing you know, you basically bought something that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise purchased. Basically, just in closing, GameStop, they've clearly got some work to do, and it needs to start at a corporate level, but hopefully they can change in the next 3 or 4 years and kind of accommodate. And even if they close half of their stores, hopefully at least all major cities and some smaller main cities that are like outside of stuff, you know, maybe they'll still be able to have some stores open. Either way, guys, GameStop is not closing. They're not closing anytime soon. Even if they close 90% of their stores and there's still 200 stores left, they're going to hang on for dear life. And the people at the top, they're of course going to keep making their money by any means necessary. So it's going to be interesting to see like their business model change, which I don't know exactly what that's going to entail, seeing as the more digital we go, the less a brick and mortar store is needed. But they're not closing. They're not closing anytime soon, even if they close a lot of stores. 200 is nothing, and who's to say that they don't close, say, 2,000 stores over the next 5 years as things start to change a bunch, and they could turn it around and get profitable again. And instead of opening 2,000 more stores, maybe 150 new stores every once a year, if they get back to that profitability again. I mean, that's completely possible. But guys, GameStop is not closing anytime soon. And I'm glad for that, because I don't want it to close. Sure, you can say what you want. You see the videos online, and all the terrible stuff that you hear, just it kind of comes from corporate. It comes from the corporate guys at the top who come down to the next guy, district managers. Sometimes they're just terrible people, and then they pick terrible store managers, and that's where you hear a lot of these stories from. But it's not just in GameStop, it's not just in Walmart or Target or Best Buy or Home Depot or Lowe's or Cumberland Farms or whatever the store is, Kmart. Like, these types of things happen anywhere, and unfortunately, very unfortunately, it's just kind of the way that the corporation and economic America and worldwide, essentially, like, there's terrible people everywhere in every seat of power. No matter what you do, you kind of can't get away from it. So at least I don't see it out in my street, and more so, I don't actually see it in the store. It's kind of as you start to climb the chain, and that goes for any corporation. So it's definitely not just GameStop. This has been going on long enough. I want to know what you guys think. Do you want GameStop to close? Would you be more than happy to see it close once they start closing stores over the next couple years? Or if their stock takes another giant plummet and they're forced to close half of the stores that they own? Like, are you going to kick them when you're down? Or, like, what's your take on it? Because I'm actually very curious to see. Like, some people are kind of in the same camp as me, where they're like, I don't want to see it close, because if I don't have a store locally, like, that's just one less shopping experience. And then basically from there, you're buying online, GameStop goes away, and then you're basically just buying from Amazon, which is sometimes fun, sometimes convenient. You click away and it shows up at your door, but you just don't get to actually go into the store. You don't meet other gamers. And, you know, it's like with this video that came out of this new store, like, I'd be totally interested in, I already have a pro membership card, and playing in like a gaming tournament, or gaming Friday nights, or Saturday Pokemon card tournament, or whatever the case is. They're gonna, at least for this one store, have like a setup in the background with TVs and some tables, and whether it's card gaming, or maybe even at some point it turns into like PC tournaments, or people bring like their laptops and stuff like that. Who knows? There's a bunch to see. But again, let me know what you think. Like, do you want to see them completely closed down, and you think they should have been closed for years? Or are you kind of one of those people that you say that they want it, you'd want to see it closed for sure, you think they should have died years ago, and yet you still have a local one that you kind of go to from time to time, and you still buy games at? Because if you're one of those, there's people like that do exist, and it's basically like you're a hypocrite if you're saying you don't support them, and yet you do go and buy from the stores. And this is the internet, folks. There are going to be people that say it should close, it should die, and at the same time, they're at the store shopping. So let me know what you think. Do you want it to stay open like me? Because personally, I really do want it to stay open. Hopefully they can close some of the stores that aren't profitable, trim some of the fat, rebrand kind of the look, the feel of it, get some new people up in corporate, and hopefully, you know, the dominoes effect like trickle down into place. So that's pretty much all I got for you guys here. I just want to know really what your take is, and what you take away from my take. Like, does this change your mind at all, or how you look at it, or kind of are you still just, you know, same train of thought no matter what I say? Either way, guys, thank you for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys on another one.